ancient symbol that wasn't her own. It's the symbol of the great royal wives. And I tell this story in the Irish Origins of Civilization books and go into even deeper waters, and the trees of life. Because, of course, the brazen standard is a kind of tree of life. I explain it all in that book. So this is then where the House of Parthia, all of the stuff that comes later, including the Templars and Priory of Sion. So the Priory of Sion is not just created at the time of the Parthians. It is a new branch of red-headed queens and their descendants. That's true. But it actually has its origins in Egypt, in Atnast, Egypt, where something remarkable took place. And it's whistleblown in this episode of the Raising of the Brazen Standard, which, if you know the symbolism, you can decode it. If you don't, well, you can't. And if you think Moses was also a real character, then you're, hopeless. You're nowhere. Melchizedek is not a real character. Ralph Ellis, in his first book on this subject, Jesus, Last of the Pharaohs, shows you that, look, even, when it comes down to even Abraham and Joseph, you're not dealing with real characters. The whole thing needs to be decoded. But let's go to the next slide. It's a very powerful organization, this Priory of Sion. Now, her nickname was Scota. It means the dark one. And it's got nothing to do with skin color. It's to do with temperament. But she gets it because we have talked before about the Scythians or Scythians. They were known as the Scota, from which you get the word Saxon, and you get the word sage, and sacrament, and sacred. But they also had another name, and that was Scots. And since the vowels are interchangeable, you could also have called the Scythians Scots in ancient times. Scots or Scots. So Scota was a Scythian. That's why she had that nickname. When her and her clan, after being thrown out of Egypt, arrive in Britain, and specifically Ireland, Ireland is given the name Scota. This is all the ancient annals of Ireland talk about this. They took her name. She's buried in County Kerry on the west coast, but under a mountain, or near a mountain. And the country became known as Scota, or Scotia. When the Irish clans crossed over into Scotland, which used to be called Albi, or Alba, and also Caledonia, they changed the name of the country to their tribe name, Scota. So it became Scotland. But most people living in that country for the last thousands of years have no idea that's an Egyptian queen's name. Not just any Egyptian queen's name, but the daughter of Akhenaten. Most Freemasons have no idea that when you're talking about Scottish Rite Freemasonry, you're talking about Scota Rite Freemasonry, the female rite of Freemasonry. So on and on it goes. And when she gets, this is one of the reasons why the symbolism that you find on Irish heraldry and so on appears as it does. These Egyptians got there. They're Atnists, and they set up shop in Britain, where the sun would never set on the British Empire and all of that. And that story is also told in the Irish Origins of Civilization. And I have Meritaten down as the most evil woman in the history of the world. There's not a single iota of what we experience today in modern times, and hasn't been for centuries, if it hadn't been for her and her actions. Let's go on.
This is from, Bajan and Lay and Lincoln, The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail. There was a secret order behind the Knights Templar, which created the Templars as its military and administrative arm. This order, which has functioned under a variety of names, is most frequently known as the Priory of Sion.
Yep, let's go on.
And this is from Lynn Pickett and Clive Prince, The Turin Shroud, in whose image the shocking truth unveiled. Bagent, Lay, and Lincoln uncovered evidence of a conspiracy surrounding the Order of Sion, sometimes referred to as the Order of Our Lady of Sion, which involved a number of families from Champagne. This, they claim, was behind the founding of the Templars. The prime mover in these events was Hughes, Count of Champagne, who was instrumental in founding the order and who eventually joined the Templars himself in 1125. Some historians believe that Hughes was related to Hugh de Payens. The records are sketchy, but he certainly was his feudal lord.
Yeah, and again, as we said, Hugh de Payens. Payens is the French word for pagan. Interesting name for a Knights Templar leader, right? Hugh de Payens. But you're right. There's two Hughes then, and both of them were Templars. And they were commissioned by the Priory of Sion, of Our Lady, to form the order. Let's go on.
The inner order of the Knights was indeed part of a secret tradition that venerated the feminine principle. Similarly, that disputed branch of the Templars, the Priory of Sion, has always had women members, and the list of its Grand Masters includes 4 women, which is particularly strange because their names appear in the medieval period when one would have expected sexism to be at its most prevalent. As Grand Masters, these women would have wielded real power, and this role no doubt demanded particularly high standards of integrity and the ability to deal with many levels of conflicting interests and egos. While it does seem strange for women to have been at the helm of such an allegedly powerful organization at the time, when even female literacy was by no means common, it seems less peculiar in the context of a secret tradition of goddess worshippers.
Right. So these are the only authors I've ever come across who even smell the truth. They concede that women were grandmasters. 4 women were grandmasters of the Priory of Sion, but they don't follow that up, and they haven't twigged it. They didn't twig it that no, it's not just 4 women. It is run wholly by them. And then their nickname, I pointed this out in several previous programs, was the Whores. And the pun is the horse. So when you see the 2 Templar knights riding the horse, they're riding the whores. It's a pun. The whores are the sacred harlots, the Heruduli, the sacred ones. It's a play on words, right? And their symbol was the horse. So that's why even in modern advertising today, when you see this horse, and on the female Illuminati program, we show ample images of this, that the female and the horse go together as symbols. Well, it's not, the occult aspect relates to the Priory of Sion, the whores. Probably even the whore of Babylon might not be unconnected to this, but in any case, the horse is one of their tutelary symbols, and they're known as the whores, as a kind of a jest, but also as a serious symbol. Let's go on.
The modern Priory of Sion is not, as critics claim, merely the invention of a handful of Frenchmen with monarchist fantasies. Because of our recent experience and contacts, there is no doubt in our own minds that the Priory exists now.
All right, carry on.
The most apparently masculine of the men, the Knights Templar, or at least their inner order, were also heavily committed to the elevation of the feminine. The intensity of their veneration for Black Madonnas was second to none, and their nightly quest for transcendental love was behind the great Holy Grail legends. The Templars were hungry for knowledge, and their search for it was their main driving force.
Mm-hmm.
Rosslyn Chapel, the Apprentice Pillar. It boasts the Apprentice Pillar, an explicit parallel with the Masonic hymn of Hiram Abiff, and the apprentice depicted on it is known as the son of the widow, a highly significant Masonic term. The lintel next to the